Good evening, Andrew. Are you there?
Good evening.
How are you doing this evening?
Good. How are you?
Good. Ready for school to be out?
I think so. We're just finishing up testing.
Oh wow. Where are you?
Forsyth County.
Oh, okay. That's the one last hour from Winston-Salem. Which school?
Clemens Middle School.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I spent 4 lovely years in Winston-Salem. Went to Wake.
All right.
Yeah, I graduated from Wake Forest. In fact, my 40th homecoming is coming up this fall.
Gotcha. Very cool.
We're going to wait a few minutes. Sorry about the late start tonight.
No problem.
Well, while I got you and we're talking, what do you look for out of these sessions?
Oh, just anything from where we need to be in terms of our evidence artifact and just what we've been reading. That's what we've been doing, at least.
Yeah. Hello, somebody. Is that Christina?
Hello.
Hello, how are you tonight?
Good.
Where are you from, Christina, or where are you working?
I work in Johnston County. I'm at Polenta Elementary.
Okay. You school to be out?
Yeah. It's a big school. Elementary, over 1,000 students.
Oh, that is a lot of little kids.
Mm-hmm.
And Ikela, am I saying that right?
Wakila.
Wakila, I missed it completely. Welcome, Wakila.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thanks. How about yourself?
I'm good.
Good. We're going to wait just a couple more minutes and then we'll see what we can get done out of this. I'm afraid I'm not as long-winded as some of your other professors. So you just won't be able to meet as long with me as you did some of them, I'm sure. Who all have you guys had so far?
Stedman and Lamb.
Oh, then you've listened to a lot of talking if you had Dr. Lamb.
A whole lot.
Yep, Dr. Lamb can talk. Dr. Lamb's an old friend of mine, so I can talk junk about him, but problem at all. But my wife is English, and she thinks Dr. Lamb's accent is absolutely hysterical.
Oh, wow. It is pretty interesting.
So, I mean, the nice thing about doing these classes is just you can do them from all over the place. So I've done them from England. I just did some last week from the Northeast, and everywhere we go, and I turn these on for my staff meetings. My wife makes sure that people get a chance to listen to my boss. So, but he's also one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. So it goes both ways. Okay. I've got a 7:07, so I'm going to go through my agenda for the night. And then if there's things that you want to add to, you're welcome to do so. First, timelines and when things have to be done. Things have to be done by the end of June. And I don't put a lot of emphasis on the due date because those are a guide to keep you on track. That's all. So the due dates are there, but you can do faster or slower. You know, if you do slower, at the end you'll be stressed. So avoid that, please. But at the same time, you got to realize that. I got to realize you have a life to run. Like this week, you're in school, which is a ton of work. But then a week after that, you may have nothing to do at all. So do it on your own pace as long as it's finished by June 15th, okay? Or June 30th, I think it is. And it's everything. So whatever you haven't done needs to get done. Now, someone had asked me, do I need you to load things that were due last semester in this semester's due box? Yes, please. And the reason for that is because I have to indicate that I know that you turn things in. I really won't read them that closely. I read through to make sure that you have all the major parts and that you have the information you need and you have a reference section and you have your page numbers and all those APA things. But as soon as I know that, I'm passing you off to your CC2, who I think is Dr. Stedman with all you guys, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So because I talked to him today, and that plan works for him too. So the first key is to make sure that I know you did it. If you did it last semester, that's fine. Pick it up, and I'm sure you have a record of it, and drop it in the right Dropbox for this course. But the key is your work with Dr. Stedman to make sure it gets to be just right. Any questions about that? Any concerns about any of that process? Okay. What's next? Course content. There's a ton of it. And you guys have so many resources in your Blackboard box that it's just a shame how much is in there. I hope you all take the time to read it, or at least read the ones that seem to be most interesting, like the one that Todd, that's all about Todd Whitaker, great things that great principals do. You used Whitaker, I'm sure, in your earlier project, right? In your earlier OMA project, I guess it was. Or was that anyway? You used it before, so that should pique your interest in finding out more about him. I'm not going to prepare something to just read what's already there to you, because you can read and I can read, and we don't need to read it out loud to ensure that you've got it. What I did find the other day is that there are no templates for SIAP. Am I correct? Is that the way you understand it? So there's no fill in the blank for SIAP. But at the same time, it's almost completely cut and paste from your past work. So it should be fairly simple. It's really.
There is a SIAP template if you go into.
Where's that one? Yeah.
There is a SIAP template if you go into your internship shell, because I downloaded it yesterday. So they have added it.
Okay. And okay, good. That's good to know. So everybody knows where to get that, and that would be under Dr. Stedman's stuff. Okay. Course content this week: management versus leadership. Why is that important? Why would we have that question? Why would we have that in there? I can't hear you. I saw a mouth moving. Rory. Unmute.
1 second.
Okay, now I got it.
So what was the question?
I got Chris Tefer.
Yep.
Well, Keila, I could already hear you. And Andrew, I could already hear you. Okay. Anyway, why is the question of management or leadership an important one?
Are you asking which one's more important, or?
I'm asking you, why is it important to know the difference and or the similarities?
Because it drives what your intentions are and your role in the school or organization that you're part of.
Which drives it, management or leadership?
Leadership should drive it.
Why do you think that?
Well, just because you have to set the example for your faculty and staff, and that should be leadership driven. So I'm taking that as in you have to lead by example, and then the management part is the day-to-day, and that's being able to delegate responsibilities to your assistant principals, or if you're an assistant principal, being able to make sure you have things done on time so you don't throw anybody under the bus is what I'm taking it as.
Yes, avoiding throwing anyone under the bus is a very important consideration if they're on your side, of course. Yes. So I contend that you can't lead if you can't manage, but you can manage if you can't lead. What do you think? You can't lead if you can't manage, but you can manage if you can't lead.
Because leading is like the top, and managing is below that. So it takes people practice and persistence to be a leader, but manager is just like people who are in the trenches and helping you and being the delegators, I guess you could say.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Well, I mean, I manage technology equipment all the time. I manage the heck out of the technology equipment for our integrated testing that we used, but it really didn't take a lot of anything else until I stepped forward as a leader and started asking people to take roles, started delegating different things, started talking about the process, and letting teachers understand and know about the rest of our infrastructure, our network and things, and how we all were responsible to make sure that we didn't bog down the network if we were in K2 while the 3-5 teachers were having the students take the test, So I could have managed my part of it just fine, but then I had to go a step further and let other people know what was happening and how we're all a team together working to make it possible.
Okay. Good example, both of those. So could you take a job as principal in a school that's always been successful, good socioeconomic dynamics, PTA that's always worked real well? Could you just manage that and be a successful principal?
You could do that for a few years, but after you're the top of that school, they're going to be able to read you like a book if you can only manage a situation. It's just like I can compare that to being a band director. You take over a really good band program,
Sure.
it'll be okay for a few years, and then until people figure out that you can't lead, and then it'll fall apart in 6 months.
Okay. So if I take on the Crimson Tide band, I'm going to be fine for a while, but eventually it's going to unravel on me, huh?
Pretty much. That's the way it goes in the band world, that is.
So maybe leadership is about looking to the future.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Seeing the big picture.
and management's about keeping things on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you be both?
I think sometimes you're forced to because your managers don't always do their job.
Mm-hmm.
You do have to put a ton of faith in your management people. So where do you make that leap from being the assistant principal manager to the principal leader? How does that work? How do you learn that? What should be there? Y'all are in schools with assistant principals, I assume. How do they? And I assume they're probably pretty good managers. Let's hope so. If we tell any ugly stories about any of them, they would stay in this forum. What do you think? How do you do that?
Some of the assistant principals, like you said, they need to look to the future. And if they're, really good at looking to the future and they are good at foresight and kind of planning a strategy A, B, C to make sure that things are successful and looking at who all could be part of that, then they're looking to be more of a leader and making sure that other people are empowered to be able to be part of the process and understand it better as a whole school system and school. But if they're just kind of, making sure that these 8 people are in this room and these 12 people are in this room and these 18 people are in this room and we're all going to take the science test and everyone's going to turn it on, here's the direction step by step, that's just managing the situation. That's not really leading the group and letting everyone know their role and how we're all going to come together. So it depends. I mean, if you got someone really strong, they'll lead the group and they'll be ready for the next step.
AP job used to be known as the guy who was always a guy who did the books and the buses and the butts, right? Everybody's heard that. I'm not that old. But they have to make the leap when they become principal is to being the leader. That's going to happen to you. I mean, no one walks out of the classroom at Gardner-Webb and walks into a principalship of a school with the opportunity to lead to wherever you think it needs to go, right? So what can you plan to do while you're still a flunky to be prepared for when the leadership role smacks you upside the head, and you ought to be terrified when it happens, by the way?
asked to be involved in in like initiatives and processes that are going around in the school, because a lot of times there's stuff going on that you don't even know about until you ask.
Right? Okay, good idea. Any others?
Just talk to people who's been there. I know for me, that's been talking to a ton of principals, both that are still principals and a lot of retired principals, about the whole process of taking over a school. And like Christina said, you always have to have a backup plan to the backup plan. And nobody's going to jump into it and be, awesome the first year or two. I mean, we all got to get our feet wet somehow. But if you have a good support system, and just learn from good and both bad principals, that's another thing that I've learned talking with, successful principals. They've learned more from bad principals than good principals.
Yep. Tell you more about my ex-principal Doris than any of the other ones I ever worked for. She was unbelievably horrible.
Yeah.
But get those lessons, because they make a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What about, I don't know what your weakness is. I was a guidance counselor, school psychologist before I went into administration, which means, of course, I never taught a class, which means, of course, that that was a weakness that could be, you never had to be in a classroom. What's your problem? Everyone's got some shortcoming in their resume. Every one of you has some shortcoming. How can you make up for those? How can you create something from nothing, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, I can start with that one.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm also a band director, and so there's a lot I don't know in terms of curriculum outside of my own. So this year, especially with the internship logs, I've been attending like the math PLT or PLCs and the department meetings for other departments. Just try to what are they called? The groups that meet top down. Just all the curriculum meetings. I've been attending as many as those as possible just to learn.
Great.
Just so I can get an idea.
Yeah, to piggyback off what Andrew said, I've sat in a bunch of social studies, math classes, CTE classes, just to figure out what they're doing and how their day runs. With being a band director, you usually get a lot of the good kids.
Right.
So you don't have to deal with a certain majority of the population that the regular ed teachers deal with. So I've spent a lot of time just sitting in classrooms and observing the other side of the coin, just to piggyback off what Andrew said.
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and to piggyback off that, because we have all the good kids, I've also spent a lot of the time in the office dealing with disciplinary referrals and what they do in those situations. Because, again, those are a lot of the kids I don't have. So I'm like, oh, so this is what's going on here.
Yeah. It's very eye-opening.
Complaints about it happening.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I
I see a really small new student over there. What?
The first thing I thought of was you find out who is good at what. You have to kind of intuit. I'm a very intuitive person, and I think that I figure out what people's strengths are, and especially if it's an area that I'm not real comfortable with, and then you develop your future leaders with those people where you recognize certain strengths in them. And so as I'm working with different, with teachers, new teachers, veteran teachers, and I was like, this person's really good at this, and they would be good in this situation. And then you give them that opportunity to do that. So anyway, whatever it is that your area might be lacking, then you surround yourself with good people who are competent and who can fill in the gaps, because one person can't be everything to all people all the time.
Well said.
Thank you.
The ability to hire is really essential.
My AP said his biggest issue is not trusting people with delegation, because he doesn't feel like people are going to do the job and do the job well.
So what does he do?
Well, he took his first year. He's been at our school the same amount of time I've been, So I've been talking to him. So the first year that he was at the school, he just did a lot of observing and figuring out who people were and figuring out people's strengths and weaknesses. And he didn't want to like rattle any cages, so to speak, until like he knew what everyone was good at and to see where everyone was at. He didn't want to do too much too fast because teachers are the biggest obstacle because they have a lot of trouble buying.
Yeah, kids are easy. Teachers are your problem, for sure. Kids are really easy. Definitely. There's two rules of, or two fields of thought about when you go into a new school. One is you study like what you said your AP did, and the other is that you go in like a whirlwind and change something immediately to show you're the new boss in town. It probably depends on the situation. We'll talk more about situational leadership later in the semester. But I appreciate you guys have all talked and thought about leadership some. And I hope have an idea of what you would like a school to look like. Schools are very different places depending on where they are and who the kids are and who the families are. But I hope you have a pretty strong sense of what you think is important about a school for kids, because that's really leadership. You can't lead if you can't manage, and the reason for that is the teachers will look and say, well, he doesn't know what he's doing. You got to carry the big key ring and go to the pump room and look like you have an idea. Go over the plans, practice all the different plans with your teachers as the boss. I had another mentor who said you need to have staff meeting at least once a month just so they remember you work there. And I think there's some wisdom to that. Probably keeps you from talking too much too. Very well done, you guys. I appreciate your thought factor. Some of you have done this section on motivation. Once you know about Bandura and motivation, did you guys know, for example, that a pay raise is not motivating at all to most human beings?
Right.
The pitiful amount of money you guys get paid to do what you do, and I strongly believe that, only serves to dissatisfy if you don't make enough. And you know, it's only about 6th or 7th on the reason of why teachers leave the profession. Money is way, way, way down the list for the search. So what do we do to motivate our? What was that? What do we do to motivate our people, which is a big part of leadership? So that I read a quote today. Motivation or leadership is the act of getting people to do what you want because they want to. Something like that. Dwight Eisenhower. How does that tie with leadership? What does motivating adults have to do with leadership?
Well, ideally, you want them to be intrinsically motivated. Ideally. But we're always looking for those factors like pay raises, and in my school it's jeans day where you can wear jeans, and as forms of motivation. But they has to be that deeper meaning of why you want to be there, and that's hard. That's hard to get.
You know, it used to shock me to find that there were teachers who taught school who didn't do it just because it was fantastic and you saw people learning stuff and it was because you do what you do. But over time, I've finally learned, and if you learn it quicker, that's not actually true. I still don't know why they went into teaching, because it looks utterly miserable to me if you didn't do it for the right reasons. How do you motivate those people, or what do you do?
Maybe you can find something that they're really good at within, the school or even within their classroom. and maybe you can try to help them flourish in that area. Maybe, have a teacher assistant who is exceptionally gifted in drawing and designing. And so we've asked her to contribute to our Read Across America week. And she creates this huge bulletin board, and we have the kids take pictures in front of it. And it really has been a motivator for her to think of herself as a contributor to the school as a whole. And, now she's not just the person that's filing the papers to go home in the weekly folder. And she's not just the person that helps, the one kid get up to the office after they threw up on the floor. Yeah. She's more motivated. She's really asks us now, how, do we need anything else? Is there something that the kids want to do? Is there something, a project going on? And they started doing recently a play, and she wanted to jump right in and help with the play and the props because that's her gift, and so maybe motivating people like that seem kind of, maybe if they seem down or seem, just finding something that they can be passionate about and making that a focus.
Excellent suggestion. Anybody else?
Teachers, in my experience, want to feel important. When we felt that they're important, they have an emotional standpoint. But from what I've seen on the other end, it seems like administrators have no time to give that emotional recognition because they're so caught up with everything else going on around them.
I do have something to add to that, Rory. And I was thinking the same thing. A lot of this, I was thinking this is part of the cultural climate. And I've tried to explain to administrators and board members that people who are drawn to teaching are perhaps, they're not robots. They're more sensitive, and they want to be treated with respect, and they want to feel valued. And so what Christina was talking about, making that person's contributions feel like she feels valued, and so then she's got more buy-in. Yeah. And so I think that teachers want respect. Our profession is not respected across the board, and I think that as school leaders, then you're in a unique opportunity. And I know that in big systems, sometimes it just doesn't happen. But I've worked in big systems. I've worked in private schools. I'm in a charter school right now, and I've had leaders who are connected to their teachers, who visit their classrooms, who just say, "Hey, how you doing?" And there are others who you never see them, you never hear from them, you have no idea what's going on in the front office. And then I have others who, when they do see it, you don't see them often, but they just say, "Hey, we really appreciate what you're doing in your department," or whatever it is that you're doing. So anyway, I think that there's a way to do that in whatever situation that we might find ourselves in, whether they're a small school or big school. You've got to somehow reach out to the people that you work with, because what makes things happen for kids is teachers. And it's like that saying, if mom ain't happy, nobody happy. So it's not all about the teachers, but to get through to the kids, kind of uphold the teachers.
It is. From Russell to everyone, I would speak aloud, but I'm trying anyway. Yeah, so another piece of advice I got, and not advice, I was commanded by my boss when I first moved from elementary to middle school principalship. And she said, "You will be in the hallway every class change. You will be. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter if the superintendent's here talking to you. You will tell him, 'Let's go for a little walk. It's class change.' And you will use that time to touch base with the human beings that are in the building. You will not sit and write reports. You will not worry about anything except being out to see humans during that 5-minute stretch." And it was a good demand. It was a very good demand. Okay. Maybe it goes back to leadership and supervision, understanding what to do. To wrap up, though, I do want you all to recognize where your shortcomings are and create yourself a plan in your mind how are you gonna make it better? How can I find some way to build on this, on my band class, on as a technology teacher, as a math teacher, as a language arts teacher, whatever you're teaching, you're short somewhere. So, and I'd be happy to talk with you individually about it, either via emails or whatever. Because I have ways as a former guidance counselor that I had dealt with it, that maybe we can figure out ways for you too as you go forward. We will always meet from here on out on Tuesdays, not on Thursdays. I appreciate everybody bearing with me. I was in a situation I really couldn't get to a computer on Tuesday, and I thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions or concerns before we go?
Oh, Dr. Robertson, I had a question about which Zoom peer review are we doing for CAP? Because when at the end of our last term, we had the choice of doing the Zoom for the peer review, you know what I mean, for CAP 1 before we ended, or at the beginning of this one. But then in I think your weekly syllabus thing, it said for CAP 2 Zoom review. So my group's a little confused about which one we're doing a Zoom review for.
Let me go back and check that.
Okay.
I'll have to look it up and find out.
Okay.
So Zoom reviews for CAP.
Right. Is it 1 or 2?
I think it's 2, but I will find out.
Thank you.
Everything you did last semester in preparation for this semester, do drop it in the proper Dropbox if it's part of our syllabus. That way you get scored for it, which is a good thing. The goal is to make sure you got everything done for 603. It doesn't have to be perfect, though, until you go through Dr. Stedman and the internship shell. So, and by now, I assume you guys all know what you're doing and are ready to finish this up. Okay. Did everybody read Russell's? That's cute. I'm going to wake his kid up, though. He was jumping up and down in the picture a little bit ago. Tell him I like kids like him. Bad boys. Okay. Let's wrap it up this week. There he is. He's not asleep. He's not even thinking about
The
it.
other one. The other one. He's got more than one.
Might have grown up and gone, thank goodness. Now, oh, wow. Well, let's end tonight with a big rousing good luck to Russell. Little kids in school administration, best we can do. You guys have a good week. I'll see you Tuesday evening.
Thanks.
Oh,
Bye.
there's another cute kid. Diana.
Hi. Say hi, everybody.
How old are you, Diana?
Say I'm 2.
2. Wow. What a cutie pie.
Thank you.
I'm 7.
You guys have a good week. I'm going to end meeting now.
All right. Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.